Hey Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagara Idasi Koruna Kori. Oh hey Diya Parachaya Shuru He Amame Tomara Charana Dhuri. Diya Parachaya Shuru He Amame Tomara Charana Dhuri. Jaya Beghadum Jaya Tosha Shodhi Jaya Duna Devo Dase. Jaya Satsanga Deho He Amare Bosheshi Sange Rashe. Ekaki aman nahi pai bolo Hare Rama Sankirtane. Ekaki aman nahi pai bolo Hare Rama Sankirtane. Tumi kripa kore Sharabindu diya Deho Krishna nama dhane. Se toma Krishna te paro tomara shakti ache. Krishna se tomara shakti te paro tomara shakti ache. Ame to kanga Krishna Krishna boli daita va pache pache. Oh hey Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagara Idase Koruna Kori. Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Ujvala varana gora varadeham Gilakita nilavani baba videham. Ujvala varana gora varadeham Gilakita nilavani baba videham. Tribhuvanatha manna kripaya lesham Samsanamami cha Shri Sachitanayam. Gagaram Parabhava Vikaram Durjana Tarjana Nara Vishalam. Bhavapaya bhajana karana karunam tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanayam. Arunam Bharadara Charukapola Induvinita Nakachaya Ruchiram. Jalpitan Jagunanama Vinodam Brahmanam Mamicha Shri Sachitanayam. Sachitanam Gaura Hari Jaya. Vigavika Nayana Kamala Jaladhara Krishna Navarasa Bhava Vikaram. Yati Mantara Nitya Vilasam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Sanchara Chari Charna Gati Ruchira Manjira Ranjita Pada Juga Maduram. Chandra Menindita Shitala Varanam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Kapidora Kamandalu Dandam Divya Kalevara Mundita Mundam. Sudana Kalmacha Kandana Dandam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Bhutana Viraja Lakavalisam Kampita Bindara Vara Ruchiram. Malayaja Vira Chitta Ujjvala Tilakam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Ninditaruna Kamala Dalanayana Ajarulamita Ugalam. Kalevara Kaishora Nartaka Vesha Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Ujjvala Varana Kura Bharatesha Yukta Niravari Bhava Videham. Pavana Kupa Shraddhatraya Vibhagyo Munama Shatadashodhyaya. Arjuna Vacha Ye Shastra Vidita Strija Yajante Shatayanvita Teshan Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattva Maho Rajastama Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Shri Vida Bhavati Shraddha Dehinam Sasvabhavaja Satviki Rajasi Chaiva Tamasi Teti Samshrinu Sattvanurupa Sarvasya Shraddha Bhavati Bharata Shraddha Mayo Yam Purusho Yo Yat Shraddha Sa Eva Sa Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshamsi Rajasa Pretan Bhuta Gunam Shanye Yajante Tamasajana Ashastra Vihitam Goram Tapyante Yeta Pojana Damba Hankara Samyukta Kamaraga Balanvita Karshayanta Sharirastam Bhutagrama Machetasaha Mam Chaivanta Sharirastam Tam Vidyasura Nishchayan Aharastvapi Sarvasya Trividho Bhavati Priya Yagnastapastata Danam Tesham Vedam Imam Shrinu Ayu Sattva Balarogya Sukha Priti Vivardana Rasya Snigdha Stira Hridya Ahara Sattvika Priya Katvam Lalavanat Yushna Tikshna Ruksha Vidahina Ahara Rasa Sheshta Dukkha Shoka Maya Prada Yata Yamam Gatarasam Puti Paryoshitam Chayat Uchishtam Cha Medyam Bhojanam Tamasapriyam Apalakang Shibhir Yagno Vidhidishto Yaijate Yashtavyam Evati Mana Samadaya Sasatvika Abhisandaya Tupalam Dambartam Apichayvayat Ijate Bharata Shreshta Tam Yagnam Vidirajasam Vidihinam Ashishtanam Mantrahinam Adakshinam Shraddha Virahitam Yagnam Tamasam Parichakshate Deva Dvija Guru Pragna Ujanam Shauchamarjavam Ramacharya Mahimsa Cha Shariram Tapa Uchate Anuvega Karam Bhakyam Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat Swadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva Vanmayam Tapa Uchate Manak Prasada Saumyadvam Maunamatma Vanigraha Bhava Samshudir Ityetat Tapo Mana Samuchate Shradaya Paraya Taptam Tapastat Trividam Narai Apalakang Shibir Yuktai Satvikam Parichakshate Satkara Mana Pujartam Tapodam Pena Chaiva Yat Kriyate Tad Iha Proktam Rajasam Jalamadruvam Mudha Grahanatmano Yat Hidaya Kriyate Tapa Parasyotsara Tat Tamasam Udaritam Datavyam iti yadanam diyate nupakarine deshe kale cha patre cha taddanam satvikam smritam yatu pratyupakarartam palam udishya vapunaha diyate cha parikrishtam taddanam rajasam smritam adesha kale yadanam apratebhyascha diyate asakritam avagnatam tattamasam udaritam Om Tat Sat iti nirdesho Ramanastri vidasmitaha Ramanastena vedascha Yagnascha vihita pura Tasmad Om ityudaritya Yagnadanantapakriyaha Pravartante vidanukta Satatam Ramavadinam Tat ityana bisandaya palam yagya tapakriyaha dana kriyascha vivida kriyante moksha kangshibi sadbhave sadhubhave cha sad ityeta prayujyate prashaste karmani tata shachabda partha yujyate Yagne tapasidane cha stiti sad iti chochyate karma chaiva tadartiyam sad ityeva badhiyate ashadhayahutam datam tapas taptam kritam chayat asad ityuchate partha nachatat pretya no iha Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad-gita Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Shraddha-traya Vibhag Yogo Nama Saptadashodhyayaha Hari Om. Just go back to around 14 in the translations from chapter 17 of the Bhagavad-gita, otherwise known as Shraddha-traya Vibhag Yoga. Like the translation to 14, 15, and 16. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There it is. Let's read it together. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Just make the screen black for a second. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Okay. How many austere... Can it go black? Is it dangerous? If the screen goes black, what will happen to us? How many austerities of the body are there? I think there's 8. Everyone talk at once. Go. How many austerities of speech are there? 5. How many austerities of the mind are there? 5. 7. How many want to practice all these austerities? Okay, put them back up again. The screen went black. Our life is over. It's like the eclipse. Now even Ramananda's back there. Okay, here it is. Go back, please, to the previous 3 verses. Austerity of the body consists of worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, nonviolence. 8. Austerity in speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence. So that's 8, 5, and 5. 8, 5, and 5. Now make it black again. I know, it's dangerous. Our life could be feeble at that time. And now, Avantika will tell us what they all are. Give her a microphone, please. Dear Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please let Avantika remember all these if you so desire. Okay, first 8. Turn on the mic. Green mic. Tech support on aisle 2.
Hare Krishna. Austerity of the body is worship of the Supreme Lord, the superiors like the father and mother, Brahmanas, spiritual master, cleanliness, self-purification, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence.
That was 9. Okay, now do the other 2.
Speech is truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating to others, and regularly reciting Vedic literature.
Okay. And austerity of the mind.
Satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, purification of one's existence.
Okay, let's see them one last time. We'll read them together. If the screen ever comes back on. Okay. Together we go. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother. And in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting the Vedic literature. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the us. Okay, which ones have a parallel or have a similar element, same element? Simplicity. It's in 14 and it's also in 16. So that makes it easy to remember, right? Are there any of those qualities that particularly stand out to anybody? Name one that you like, yes?
Could you elaborate more on gravity in terms of austerities of the mind?
Gravity means that the mind should be trained to not think of sense gratification, but to think of Krishna, to think of service to Krishna. That's how Prabhupada mentions it in the purport. Gravity. Purification of one's existence means that the work that we do should be for yajna or sacrifice to Krishna, because by yajna we purify our existence. And now let's, we're running out of time. No? Okay, now we'll have Guru Puja. Namasheshtam manamapi shachiputana mantra surupam shirupam tasya grajamurupinam maturim goshtavatim radhakundam girivaramoho radhika madhavasham prapto yasya pratita kripaya shigurum tam datosmi. He Guru Gyanadadina Bandho Swa Dadata Korunaika Sindho Vrindavana Sina Hitavata Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachara. He Dina Bandho Korunaika Sindho Guru Prasada Maimanda Mudhe Laksha Parade Bahupapa Gadhe Tatpada Padme Atishta Krishna Daivo Payantya Pachitim Kavayastavesha Ramayushapi Kritim Riddha Mudasmaranta Yotar Mahistandobritam Ashubham Vadunvam Acharya Chaitya Pushasragatim Yanakti. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachimata, the association of Srila Sarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatan Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kund, and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Shri Radhika and Madhava and Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a dull fool and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy, so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Sri Krishna. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain your devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fills all of his desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Kiss the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the world. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Shama. Bando Mui Savadana Mate Jahata Prastade Bhai Bhavato Viyaja. Chitete Kuriya Oitya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Kuriya Oitya Charane Radhe Yeshe Tamapate Jeta Kare Pure Sarva Vikasare Pure Sarva Gandhilo De Janme Janme Prabhu Ke Chaku Gandhilo De Janme Janme Prabhu Ke Jnana Hire Prakashito Jnana Hire Prakashito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Aditya Jinasa Jate
Namaste Bhakti-vedanta Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauramani Prashanine Nirvishesha Shunyamari Paschatyarisha Karine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Go Premanande.
Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Vishnu.
Prams Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki jai.
Ki, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Shri Ganga Mai ki, Yamuna Mai ki, Shri Tulsi Devi ki, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Transcendental Book Distribution ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada.
Nitai Gauda Haribo. Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gauda Haribo. Hari Hari. Make it symmetrical, please, and move up closer. Jaya Radha Madha Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Vrajachandaranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajachandaranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajachandaranjana. Jamuna Tira Manachari. Jamuna Tira Manachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaur Hari Bol. So a few years ago, Malini sold one of these for $250 at the Rath Yatra because the person said, how much is it? And he said, well, it comes with the Bhagavatam set. So you got to buy it separately? No, it comes with it. So how much is the Bhagavatam? $250. I'll take it. So this is Balaram, because Balaram's the Sandini potency, the one who manifests all the forms in the spiritual world, so that Krishna can have his pastimes. And now all we need is a Bhagavatam. If we could have a 10th canto somewhere around chapter 45. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who gave us the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhaktivedanta purports. So the process of Krishna consciousness begins with Sambandha Gyan, or analyzing one's relationship with Krishna and also our long time attachment to the material world, and studying the difference between them. That's very helpful. The beginning of Bhagavad-gita, we get an indication of the mentality that keeps us attached to the material energy. The first verse of the Bhagavad-gita starts off with Dhritarashtra. He's the anti-hero, although he saves himself at the end of the story, not of the story of the Bhagavad-gita, but of the story of his life. And he says, Dhritarashtra vacha, dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava, mamaka pandavaschaiva kima kurvata sanjaya. So Dhritarashtra vacha means Dhritarashtra said. So Dhritarashtra is with his servant, who's a mystic, by the empowerment of Vyasadeva, his spiritual master. And he's relating what is being said by Dhritarashtra, or Sanjaya is relating what's happening on the battlefield at Kurukshetra. And so this is an inquiry by Dhritarashtra. He's asking a question that is very self-serving. And all our acharyas point out that this is the foundational point that Krishna is going to defeat throughout the Bhagavad-gita. Because first of all, he mentions dharma kshetre and kurukshetre. So the place where the battle is taking place is a place of pilgrimage. Since time immemorial, people go there for special kinds of yagyas or sacrifices to purify themselves. And interestingly, at the time this was spoken, battles were also considered a sacred duty. When the occasion arose, when there was a decline in righteousness, then there were those who were appointed to uphold it for the benefit of all people, citizens, which meant not just human beings but also animals. That's one of the points that's made about who's to be protected. It's the praja. Ja means to be born, and pra means throughout the jurisdiction of that leader. And nowadays people very narrow-mindedly say, well, that just not only just applies to people, but only my people.
In fact, everybody else I'm not so concerned about. And this is the disease that Dhritarashtra is displaying when he makes this utterance. So first of all, he notes that it's Dharmakshetra and a Kurukshetra. It's at Kurukshetra, which is a place to perform Dharma. And this worries him because he is doing something wrong. He has gone along with his evil son, Duryodhana, who's trying to unlawfully take the kingdom away from the Pandavas, whose father had passed away when they were children, and they were to be raised under the care of Dhritarashtra, who would then bequeath the kingdom to them. But then he started getting attached to his son, and of course, he had 100 sons, and the leader of them was Duryodhana. And then he thought, well, I'll just nudge it over this way. And he was thinking that if I could just get rid of these Pandavas, these pesky Pandavas, which was a terrible way to think because they were put in his care. And it was because of his weakness of heart. And now he's nervous because he knows that it's at a place of Dharma. And he knows he's doing the wrong thing. So this is a point of disturbance for all living beings. It's called, in psychological terms, cognitive dissonance. I know the right thing to do, but I can't do it, or I won't do it. Can't, won't. Prabhupada used to say can't means won't. And as an example, sometimes, like I've seen in walking through, which airport? I think in Delhi, they have cigarette packets. Maybe it's in some other country, but they have on the packet itself pictures of people who have cancer. I mean, here in America, they have warning cigarette smoking. I don't know what it says. Something like it might be hazardous to your health. I'm sure they fought over every word in the courts. But in India, they just put on the packet actual pictures of people various pictures of people with cancer. And I wonder how it is that someone walks in and orders a packet of cigarettes like that and then ignores the picture on the outside. That's an example of cognitive dissonance. Because I know this is wrong and I just ignore it. And ignorance means ignorance. I know the truth, or I know it's the right thing, but I just do the wrong thing, and that puts me out of stead with my natural position of happiness. Bhayam dvitiya abhinibeshatasya ishad apetasya viparyoyo smriti. The Bhagavatam says, when I have a separate interest from pleasing Krishna, which is the right thing to do, and it's a happy condition of life. It's like when we feel completely happy and natural in our position of serving Krishna, but then when we step outside of that and try to please ourselves separately from Krishna, as Dhritarashtra is trying to do, then dvitiya, I've got a second interest besides pleasing Krishna's senses. So, Dharmakshetra Kurukshetra, and that verse said that I just quoted, bhayam dvitiya, means that fear arises in my heart. And that's what's arisen within the heart of Dhritarashtra. He's fearful that he'll lose the battle. And he knows that it probably won't go well because the Pandavas, he knows deep inside, are righteous. And he knows he's doing the wrong thing and that his son is a bad seed. Yet he's hopeful that, hope it all just goes my way. I'll win anyway, and then nobody will notice. Dharmakshetra Kurukshetra samaveta yuyutsava mamaka pandavaschaiva. So this word mamaka is also a focal point for the teachers of the Bhagavad-gita, and that is that mamaka means these are my people. I want mine to win, and I want everybody else to go down. And there's a mood that a conditioned soul develops in this world. Krishna mentions in the Gita also, icha, dvesha, samutena, dvandva, mohena, bharata. Dvandva means they see my people and other people. Whereas those who become spiritually conscious are aware that all people are my people. We're all together. And it's not just people. There are also animals. And there are also trees and all entities. In fact, everything. Aham sarvasya prabhavo, Krishna says, everything emanates from me. So one feels a kinship with everything and doesn't hate anything or any being because one sees that it's all related to Krishna. We're all related to Krishna. It doesn't mean also that one artificially acts the same way towards all entities, because externally there are differences to be observed while we're temporarily here in the material world. And there's a certain way of dealing on the bodily platform with others so that we don't violate their particular nature. So that's a complicated and it's a balancing act to be able to see all entities as equal and at the same time act according to a person's individual nature as affected by the modes of material nature. So this reveals the deep attachment that Dhritarashtra has to his sons. And this is the word mamaka. So my people, my party, my sons. Pandavas chaivas, and you notice that the other party is there too. Kim akurvata sanjaya. So what did they do? So what's going to happen? And this is where he's hoping against hope that everything just goes his way, but he knows it's probably not going to go his way. So this is a foundational aspect of existence. There's a way in which I identify with my physical body, my family, therefore my particular city, my sports team, my country, my race, my species, and I lose the vision of universality, that everyone is part of the same original whole. So when the Kurukshetra battle was approaching, it became apparent that there had to be a war between the two sides, because Dhritarashtra was supporting his son Duryodhana, and Duryodhana was bent on going to war. He had spent a lot of time building up his military force and getting people on his side. He had a big bank balance, and he was paying a lot of people to come and fight for him. He had mercenaries on his side. So people had this sense of alliance with Duryodhana, and some people liked him also. Living entities tend towards anybody who stands up and leads, tend to get behind somebody who stands up and leads, because by nature we're followers. And if someone, no matter who it is, as we can see throughout history, you can follow how many bad leaders have there been in modern history. And why do people follow bad leaders? It's our nature to follow. And so there were many that were following Duryodhana. Some were indentured because they were being paid by him. Others just went along. And they had amassed a really large army. And so Krishna wants to have the battle in order to establish the Pandavas, and Yudhishthira, who would be the king, to make sure that dharma prevailed. This is a principle because people can't be happy in the material world unless they're aligned with their ultimate purpose of life. That's the whole project of the Vedic culture, is to give everyone, all living beings, especially humans who have the wherewithal to exercise their free will by thinking of Krishna and God and so forth. There should be an organized system so that they can be protected and they can cultivate their God consciousness. So that had diminished. The opportunity to do that had been waylaid because of the evil forces that had amassed on the planet Earth, and also because of the time, place, and circumstance. And Krishna says, Pritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That it's this, I come from time to time to realign things, because in due course of time, the righteous path diminishes, or it gets forgotten, and people by degrees start to go off into retrograde paths in life by which they become more and more degraded. And the leaders especially are the ones who do that. As is mentioned in the Bhagavatam in the 12th canto, what ushers in Kali Yuga more and more is that leaders get into power who are ill-motivated and who are untrained and don't know what to do. So Krishna comes to put a leader in charge who knows how to help all living beings. There's barely a semblance of that in today's world. That means we don't see that very much, that there are righteous leaders. Do we? Or did I miss anything? I mean, ever since I came into the world, I just noticed that everybody wants a good leader. When I was a kid, I was in kindergarten, I think Kennedy got elected. And there was, at least in my neighborhood, there was a sense that now everything's going to be great. But then, of course, he was assassinated, which was really a shocking blow to people all over the world. And then there was also revelation about his character over time. And that's also disappointing. So it's rare to find a good leader. Once when I was in Thailand for a while, there was a king, king, that was well-educated and also apparently well-intentioned, as much as one can be in this day and age. And there was a sense there that the people really loved their king. And even now, the king's birthday comes up, there's a big celebration. Boats are going back and forth with flags, and everybody takes the day off and so forth. And anyway, this king had some ideas about making sure that people were being taken care of in a very universal way. And even a semblance, as I said before, of that is very calming and reassuring. The people feel, okay, there's somebody who actually cares and they're in charge. They don't have to think so much about who's going to be there next because somebody has inherited that position and so forth. I felt a sense that the people had in general, that there was a kind of calm resolve to go on with one's duties in life and know that there's somebody watching out. I'm not saying that this person was perfect. I'm just saying there was a semblance of that. And one could extrapolate from that what it might feel like in a time when there was a perfectly righteous king. So Yudhishthira is among those who are called Raja Rishis. So a Rishi is a saint and well-read and educated in the spiritual science, and a Raj is a king. So at that time, and this was about when Kali Yuga started to break out all over the world, the Raja Rishis were available to the people. They were very benevolent and well-educated, and they knew what the goal of life was, and they also set a good example. How about that? That's not ordinary. So throughout the Bhagavad-gita, then, we get this instruction from Krishna about how to fight against this misalignment that we all have of being attached to the wrong things, this sense of I am my body. And the importance in life is how comfortable I am, how comfortable my people are. And Krishna, throughout Bhagavad-gita, describes how it is we come into the spell of material nature and how it is we rise above it. And if we follow that, then we'll be well situated in the world. And this is the crying need of people all over the world. Let's start with Silicon Valley. It's a crying need of people in Silicon Valley. There's a modicum of wealth here, wouldn't you say? California? Not very much, huh? There's a lot. People have a lot of wealth here. California is, if it broke off from the rest of America and the world, it would be one of the most successful nations in the world as far as wealth goes and diversity of economics and so forth. But still, Prabhupada mentions in the introduction to the Bhagavatam, there's a pinprick somewhere in the social body. How many, even if you have wealth, how can you enjoy it? It's burdensome. There's a way in which people who are very wealthy, they try to invest mostly in cars, like a lot of them, not all of them, but if you notice the lives of the rich and famous, what do they get? A lot of cars. I mean, cars in and of themselves, somebody taught me when I bought my first car, before I bought my first car, I was like, how do you do it? How do you buy a car? And one of the pieces of advice I got was, don't love the car because it won't love you back. That's a good law for moving about the material world. And even if it does love you now, it won't love you later. It'll change. The relationship will change. The only relationship that doesn't change unless we deny it or estrange ourselves from Krishna is our relationship with Krishna. So it's important to know how to interact with the material nature, and also that there's no satisfaction just from accumulating wealth or being in a so-called comfortable situation, because that will change. In the Gita, Krishna says, he says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate, that this sense that I'll be happy by making my material senses happy in this world, or feeling satisfied. He said that's illusory. You're actually going to get the opposite of what you expected. Meanwhile, Arjuna had temporarily come under the spell of thinking that by going into the battle, he might come out victorious. And then he noticed when he went into the middle of the two armies that the people that he would have shared his victory with were on the opposing side. What's the first thing you do when you win an award at school? You come and tell your mom, right? Say yes. Yeah, you come and tell your mom. I think I was in kindergarten, and we had this fair at school, Burton School I went to till 6th grade. It was right down the street from my house. And they had the Burton Fair every year, and they had these races. And when I was in kindergarten, for the kindergartners, there was a skipping race. I tripped at the beginning of the race, and I came in 7th, and they gave me a ribbon. My mom still had it when she passed. 7th place for skipping. And my mom, she kept it. My whole life, her whole life, she kept it. You come back and you show your mom's like, Mom, I won something. It's like, oh my God. And there's this sense that I want to show my people, especially I want to show my siblings, right? I make more than you do. That's the main impetus why people is like, are you studying hard? I'm studying really hard. Why? Because I know my siblings are studying hard, and I'm going to study. No one's going to outwork me, and no one's going to out-earn me either later on. I'm going to go back, especially for the holidays, and I'm going to like, well, how are you doing? Pretty good. So there's this sense, this is all under the umbrella of mamaka. I'm doing well, I'm doing it, and these are my people I'm going to show off to. So Arjuna is put in this situation where he's looking out and he's thinking that this is not working. This whole idea of me being the hero, who am I going to show it to if I win? If I win, I'm killing all the people I was going to show off to, because they're on the wrong side. They were either paid off or somehow they got misaligned, and that's the nature of the material world, misalignment. Everything turns on itself eventually. And Arjuna is there in the first chapter saying that I'm getting the opposite of what I expected. And Prabhupada often points out, points in history when this has happened. He talks about, especially Gandhi. He knew a lot about Gandhi because he was part of the Gandhi movement, the Gandhian movement for some time, and until he met his spiritual master. And then his spiritual master said, this nationalism, this idea of getting free from the British, and then we'll actually have the freedom to do whatever we want and make spiritual advancement. He said, this is not a great idea. The material world's always got its element of being topsy-turvy. And Prabhupada points out, in retrospect about Gandhi, that he wanted peace. He wanted unity and diversity. Actually, India, the Indian subcontinent, such that it was, at that time, was the most diverse place in the world due to various cultures intervening in the Indian culture, and there's a way of which the culture syncretized many of the cultures that came into it. And there was a diversity of cultures that were well tolerated. And then there was agitation after the British left to divide the country in half, exactly what Gandhi didn't want. And then there was fighting. It was a horrendous fight when Lord Mountbatten from England was given the task to divide up the continent. And you just sit there with a map and take a magic marker, like, and you're cutting people's cultures in half, practically. It's like, you go that way, you go that way. And then the people were disturbed. There were huge wars that went on. Bodies were piled high. And Gandhi said, I've got the opposite of what I wanted. I wanted peace, and I couldn't get any peace. And I wanted it to be unified, and now it's totally divided. And he wanted his followers to be pure in heart and to not want anything except for unity, but they all wanted a political position. And he said, better off, the morning that he was killed, he actually commented as this, I'm better off dead. And that's a little later, somebody from his own party assassinated him. Very reminiscent of my experience with Kennedy in kindergarten. But that's the way of the world, and it's not just recent, it goes back. It can look at the history of the world, and this is the way the material world folds in on itself, and it's due to a mistaken consciousness. And so Krishna tells us how to rise above that, and it's by coming to one's original pure state of consciousness, of I am a spiritual spark of the Supreme. Krishna says in the Gita, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Manakshasta Nindrayani Prakriti Stani Karshati, which means you are, all the living entities, the individual sparks, are all my parts. And right now you're struggling hard because you've taken shelter of the material energy, which is most concentrated in our minds. That's our lens through which we see the world, and the mind becomes conditioned by the three modes of nature, and then that's our little prison cell that we check into one lifetime after another, until we come to this source of all freedom, which is to free ourselves from the bodily conception of life, and that necessitates attaching ourselves to our eternal constitutional position, which is to serve Krishna, and to realize that our real nature is as a servant of Krishna. And don't think that's a demeaning situation. That's the material mindset that, no, I want to be independently powerful. Well, we can't be. You could notice that we don't independently maintain our bodies. Material nature maintains our bodies. Don't you think? Have you ever noticed when something goes wrong, there's barely anybody who even has a clue what to do about it? Actually, a lot of people have a clue what to do about it, but we really don't believe them. Like, here, take this. Like, is that going to work? I was like, maybe. It worked for my grandma. Her wrinkles fell off. But, it's like a guy's getting paid for it. There's myriad ways people try to adjust to the material nature, but it's so far, since time immemorial, if you had a little scoreboard, sometimes I'd walk by my local park, and they have a baseball, football field, and I kind of peek and see what the scoreboard is, like who's winning. If you looked at that in the material world, living entity, 0. Material nature, 1 trillion to the trillionth power. Every time 1. And it's like, is this out of balance somewhere? How am I going to win? And Krishna tells, how am I going to win? And the Bhagavatam tells, here's how you actually become a winner. Tato jayam udirayat. What is it? Tato jayam udirayat means that here's how you become victorious. You cross over the material nature is by the simple process of just taking shelter of Krishna. Then all of your so-called problems are solved, and there's a natural happiness within the heart despite the changes that are going on in the outside of the world. And this is our main purpose in life, is to develop this. We're not to quit our duties. You have to go on with what you're doing, but we do have to change our approach to the world. It's not mamaka. These are not my things. They all belong to Krishna. And whatever family members I have, they belong to Krishna. Whatever pets I have, those are Krishna's pets. They belong to him. Whatever wealth I have, that's Krishna's wealth. And on the safe side of life, the infallible way in which to move forward in this world is mentioned in the Sri Upanishad, which says, Ishavasyam idam sarvam, yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Which means that everything animate or inanimate within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. If we take that realistic path, then we naturally feel unburdened, and whatever kind of engagements we have now, the studies we're engaged in, the commerce we're engaged in, the work that we're doing and so forth, whatever kind of facility has been bequeathed to us in this world, if we consider it, this has been given to me by Krishna, I'm meant to use it in his service, and I make all my decisions based on what's best to position myself for more service. Now and in the future, everything I make based on that. Then I'll live in such a way that I'm not affected by karma. That's mentioned also. Kurvan eveha karmani jijivishek shatam zamaha evan tvai nanyatetos na karma lipite nare. A human who lives like this, who thinks like this, will not be affected by karma. The reactions will not come to such a person. They'll be untouched. And then the verse goes on to say, there's no alternative to this way for a human. If you don't do this, you'll be smashed by the process of material nature. So we could take shelter of the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. The only problems we have in life come from a lack of Krishna consciousness. And the only problem that people have anywhere, it's not due to a lack of wealth or resources, although that may temporarily affect people, and it does sometimes, but it's due to a lack of God consciousness, of awareness of the fact that I'm not my body, I don't even belong to this world, that I'm a spiritual soul. And I saw it when we were in Puri. We went to a bus station to distribute books. And we coined that the filthiest place on earth, because it's a very dirty bus station, outdoor platform. In fact, one of my techniques for distributing books in Orissa is to kick off my shoes before I'd approach somebody, because then they take it very seriously and they kick their shoes off, right? But when we got into the bus station, near Kulok looked at me and said, "Don't kick off your shoes." And I walked up one bus. There were buses that parked as far as the eye could see, so I kept walking back further and further till I found some of the people who were isolated, thought they were all by themselves. And then I was with Sudhir Madhava. He was assisting me, and walked up onto one especially filthy bus. And there was a guy sitting there, the driver, and he was absorbed in watching a little movie on his phone, little cracked phone. I was thinking, this is material life. little cracked phone, little screen, and the music was, and he was like, and as soon as he saw me walking up, I mean, what else could you conclude? That they're tromping up the steps on my bus, and they know what it means, the tilak, the neck beads, and all that kind of stuff. And I saw him go click. He turned it off right away because he recognized busted. I'm sitting back here trying to enjoy myself with some stupid little cracked screen and some stupid little song somebody made up. It has nothing to do with anything important. And then, somebody who's representing the Bhagavad-gita walks up the steps, and then he just looked and he went click. The way he turned it off, I was thinking, like, that's the way you do it. That's the way you do it. You just click, turn it off, and say, like, enough's enough. I've messed around with this stupid energy for so long. I've been frustrated by it. Take the advice of the Bhagavad-gita, turn it off. And then we gave him our whole presentation, and when we walked out, he had replaced his fascination with that little cracked screen and the stupid song that was playing with a book written in his language by the arrangement of Srila Prabhupada and the Guru Parampara. And that is satisfying. To be able to give somebody something that actually feeds the soul. Now, if I'd walked up there and given him a sandwich or pani puri or something like that, he would have been happy for a minute. It's like, why are you giving me this? It's like, yes, this is what we do. Of course, if it's prasadam, it's nice. But if somebody gets a book, then we've done our prime duty, which is to give the soul there an opportunity to come to full consciousness, which is altogether possible because every soul is part and parcel of Krishna and has the potency of knowledge. That's why there's so many bookstores in the world. You go to an airport, there's a bookstore. You drive down the street, people have those little, even we have the little house you can take a book out of. Books are beloved all over the world because whenever a little jiva looks at that, they think like, I could better myself by reading that. I could get something out of it. There's a potency that every being has, thinking knowledge, that's good. I could take something from that. Only problem is people are getting knowledge that's tinged with the three modes of material nature. It's very rare. Even if you go through all the TED Talks, you can find some very heady stuff that it's like, yeah, that's really good, but it doesn't touch the divine completely enough. In fact, that was the whole argument that Narada had to his disciple, Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva had taken the trouble doing all these Vedic literatures, and then Narada came in and said, you blew it. This is all TED Talk stuff. It's not to the highest level. He said, Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishokam abhadyavatyapi namanyanantasya shonkitaniyad grananti sadhava. There's a way in which there's a message that transcends TED Talk. It goes to the next level. It actually describes our relationship with the Supreme, with the spiritual world. It's practically unbelievable to those who haven't heard it before. Even to those who have. You wake up the next morning and goes like, yeah, is this real or not? That's why I was saying this morning, you have to renew it every day. And actually, you have to taste it for yourself. It has to be directly experienced. And you have to hear for a long time. And you have to become steady and overcome the tendency to take shelter of sense gratification in order to feel satisfied. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radhoksaje ahetukiya pratiyata yatma superseded. I'm finished, right? 9:45? Oh, okay. We'll take a few reflections or questions before, lest I ramble on. Okay, I thought Kayla Kunji Kumari had her hand up. Okay. Madhava Govinda Prabhu, who is hopefully going to write a book called The Incredible Journey. How he was forced to leave, but he made it all the way back.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful class. Initially, you were mentioning about how living entities, they are misaligned. So I wanted to ask a question, like how, as individuals, and also as an organization, as big as ISKCON, which is going on for a long time, how we can how we can make sure that we are always aligned with what our acharyas wanted us to do.
It's mostly by association. First of all, I don't necessarily agree with the premise. ISKCON's not been around for a very long time. We're just a little over 50 years now? Isn't it? 1966 it was incorporated. So how many years is that now? 50? 57? Okay, 57 years? That's very short for a movement like this. In fact, when I was in Japan once, I was at Govinda's with Satyadev Prabhu, and on the way there, I'd picked up a couple of copies of Watchtower from our friends, the Jehovah's Witness. And they are our friends. They opened up legally all the door-to-door in America. So you can thank your local Jehovah's Witness if you're going door-to-door. Yeah, they're our friends. So I picked up my copies of Watchtower, and I was looking at them at the restaurant there. And I was saying, of all the different Christian groups, these are the most unreceptive. And then the crowd cleared, and our temple president at the time, who also ran the restaurant, came over to him and said, I have somebody to introduce to you. I said, who? And he said, he's a Jehovah's Witness. What are the chances, right? And meanwhile, we were looking pretty good because I was like, Watchtower? So he had somehow or other received Prabhupada's books from coming to the restaurant, and then he started reading them, and he said, I have two things to say in appreciation of your movement. One is it's a very young movement. And he said, I appreciate that it's young and still not that well organized. Because there's always what is it? Storming, norming, forming, storming, norming. Definitely in storming stage somewhere. And so he said, I appreciate that. He said, what do I appreciate? He said, it's so disorganized, but you're all so sincere because you hang in there, despite the fact that there's all these obstacles to overcome. He said, so that's I've ascertained. He was an intelligent guy. And then he said, the second thing I've learned from reading your books is that there's no material motive here. It's only to serve God, service for service. In fact, he said that's your main theme, and that's I also appreciate. He said that's rare in this world. It's like, who are you anyway? And how do we, at least on a practical level, what's helpful for me, and when somebody just sent me a quote, in fact, it was the Bhakta who we sing the tune, the way I recorded it in London. Remember it? Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahojito. Anyway, he sends me all these quotes. And, one of them was from Prabhupada, and he was answering this very question that you're asking. And he said, you have to read my books regularly. And I find that that's true, too. That if I take time to read my prescribed number of pages every day, which I have recorded, and I get a great thrill, maybe even the same kind of thrill that some kind of addict gets by taking their next dose. But when I push the button on my app, and it makes this little sound that says you completed your task. In fact, I can do it now. I'm going to play it for you. Maybe you'll get the same kind of buzz that I get. Because we chanted our chapter, right? Yes. So I can legitimately push this button. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Make sure it's on. That continues my streak, and it adds up. I was just thinking this morning because I had a busy day yesterday, and I had to stay up a little later than usual to finish all my stuff where I can ring my little bells on this thing. But when I woke up this morning and I got reoriented to the world, I thought, oh yeah, I did my sadhana yesterday. And because of that, I feel okay. I feel well positioned. I know what to do. I'm going to go for it again today. I'm going to try again. So we have to have a plan to stay in the most important aspects of Krishna consciousness ourselves. You have to get your own bhajan on. If you don't have your own bhajan, and these are my set things I do every day no matter what. If you don't have that, some way or another, the material nature is going to get at you. So you have to have that, and you also have to have good association. You have to have association with those who are stalwarts. They're already in nishta. They have a place to stand, and there's no other place for them. That's their heart. And if you have association with stalwarts and you have your bhajan down, then you can overcome the waves that come through your own mind in personal life and also in an organization. You've got a bunch of human beings. What do you expect? You're going to get all kinds of crazy stuff happening in every organization. And so you have to be able to stand strong and find your niche where you trust people. And like sometimes people ask me, they'll say like, well, what's going to happen to the organization because of this happened and that happened? And my observation is there's so many advanced devotees around the world that no matter what happens, they're still going to be there. And that's what a movement is. It's the strength of those who have actually taken the process seriously. We shake the tree, leaves come off. And those are the ones that weren't hanging on hard enough. But there will be a bunch of leaves that stay on there. So this is important to have your own process very clearly defined, and you've got a stake in it. And also that you're associated with people that you're very sure are well situated. And those two items will take you through all the different phases of your life. Every 10 years is like a phase that you'll go through. And astrologically, there'll be big changes at certain times. And geopolitically, there'll be changes. Your physical body will change. Everything will change. But if you keep your bhajan going and you don't change that, and you keep association with advanced devotees, then somehow or other, which will be a miracle, but you'll do it, you'll put together one whole lifetime in Krishna consciousness. And guess what happens then? You die with a total awareness that, hey, somehow or other, it may have not been pretty, but I did it. And I did one whole lifetime put that together. If you have that in your mind as your top goal, is to put this one lifetime, put it all the way through, no matter what other things you have to do, just keep that as your top priority, then you can sail out of here as a Sukhi Nara. You know what a Sukhi Nara is? A happy human. It's a last verse I'll say. It's a Shaknoti Haivaya Shodhum Praksharira Vimokshana Kama Krodod Bhavam Vegam Sayukta Sa Sukhi Nara. Say Sukhi Nara. It's Japanese. Actually, it's Sanskrit, but it sounds Japanese. Sukinara, sukinara. So, what does it say? It says, if before you leave the body, note that before you leave the body, you can get your scene together, then you're going to be a happy human. So, get your scene together. Get your bhajan on strongly, and don't give in to all the stuff that stupid people give into. As we learned from that one seminar I took in Texas that time, it's the one thing I took away from it. Stupid gets you killed. So be careful. Don't be stupid. Stick to what really works and what's mentioned by the great acharyas, and stick with people who aren't stupid. Om Tat Sat. We got to go. We'll continue this later, but now we're starting with our prasadam extravaganza. Sharirat Vijaja Jodendriya Taheka Jibe Pele Bishaya Shagare Tarma Jidvayati Lobo Moisu Durmati
Take jeta katita samsare Krishna borudoya moy Gori Bhare Jiva Jai Saprasad Annadino Bahar Shayanamrita Pao Radha Krishna Gunata Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Nita Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Nita Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Papa Punya Patam Rajan Vishna Surnai Vijayate Sare Sarva Tintanam Mani Akto Vijayate Prasana Cheta Suryashri Rupaya Vajista Devayo Pavita Srikanda Vasavankara Chachitaha Uchishta Vojina Dasa Dhamamayan Jaivahi Bhagavat Sri Mahaprasadi Gaur Premanande Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Now prasadam is being served, right? No? False advertising? Where is it? Bring your own. You brought your own prasadam? You got to be here at 9:44 and 59 seconds. We're going to start on time. This is going to be the most organized on-time program ever. So take prasadam. Keep in mind what time we're starting because it's a retrospective and a training for the new year with the Sankirtan department. And everyone has a slot, and so we want to fulfill that. Panchakalpadrivishya kripasindhaveva patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnavindiki jai Gaur Premanande Haribo. Please come take prasadam. It's being served, I'm guessing, in the picnic area right outside. It's a beautiful day. Please enjoy yourselves.